help support my channel. I have merch with terrible dinosaur puns on it, and I also have a Patreon where I have giveaways every 4 months. Speaking of giveaways, this is my latest Patreon giveaway. So the winner of the Patreon giveaway requested I do a Jurassic Park Chaos Effect colours on this little Snap Squad guy. So I'll be using Citadel throughout this, as well as a couple of other paints, and I won't be base coating because I want to limit the paint on this creature to make sure the parts all move and nothing scrapes. So there's not much to say or describe when it comes to what I'm doing right now in this episode. I'm just painting, so I'm going to try out a story time for you all. So you should probably know by the title, Vampires? ? So I'll try to set the scene for you while I paint. So this was back when I was 16 or 17, I think. And we lived on a station in the middle of nowhere, Australia. So our neighbours were practically a country away from us. The nearest town was another country away from us. We lived in this tiny little tin shed in the middle of this paddock. You could see the dirt road from our house. And it's in outback Australia, if that sort of sets the setting for you. The road wasn't often used. It was only used by the occasional person going to their home on a different station, or they were cutting across through the station as a kind of shortcut. It wasn't really a shortcut because the roads weren't very good. But anyway, each to their own. And we'd also get the very rare tourist coming through looking for the Cobb and Co Trail. The Cobb and Co Trail in Australia is a very well-known historic trail. It goes across major parts in Australia. And we just so happened to have one on our station. It would just look like two tracks carved into rock. It's not very exciting. But anyway, so occasionally these tourists or these farmers going through, their cars would break down, and because we were the only house around that could be seen, it was quite normal that people would walk down a driveway and ask for assistance. Now, because we're in the middle of nowhere and people can be shady, we usually look to our house dogs, which are our little guard dogs. Well, not little dogs, they were big dogs. Our dogs to guard the house. We looked at them to judge whether the people were trustworthy. They were pretty good at character judgment, and if the dogs didn't like them, we would usually just call RACQ, which is a kind of car helping service, and we'd get help out to these people without actually leaving our yard. Anyway, that sets the scene. Okay, so on this night, we had just finished pushing or herding cattle across the station for a few days. All the Jillaroos, which are the muster hands or people that push the cattle, we had a big team of them, and they were all camping in their swags, which are camping beds. They were all sleeping in their swags on the little cement patio we had in our little shed. And Dad was asleep in his swag, and Mum and my sister were just in the kitchen getting things ready for breakfast the next day. So we're cutting up bacon and getting the eggs ready and prepared so things could be streamlined for cooking this mass amount of people's breakfast. It was midnight, it was a full moon. And my big guard dog, Yoko, started to stir, and my mum's dog, Jack, started to stir. So we were like, okay, what's going on? They're not really barking, they're not really growling, they're more just grumbling in a sort of alert, like something's out there disturbing them. So we all walk outside and we see in the bright moonlight, dark silhouette walking down our little dirt driveway. We're like, okay, someone's broken down, they need help. As he's walking closer, we realise he is wearing very beautiful but odd attire for the outback setting that they're in. Well, he's in. He's wearing a beautiful black lacy top. Black jeans, black belt, a beautiful black lacy trench coat. I'm probably just calling it the wrong thing, but it was a very long black lacy coat that looked really heavy. Again, in Australia in the outback, it's hot. Why the jacket? He had shoulder length black curly hair, a black pointy beard, and a black pointy moustache that looked like he could probably curl it. And he had the most pale white skin that was reflecting the moonlight. As he's walking down the driveway, my sister goes, "Is that an effing vampire?" as a joke. And we're all like, yeah, he looks like a vampire. Why are you out here? But anyway, the dogs are not upset with him. So we're going, okay, this guy's trustworthy. He gets up to the fence. And before Mum can even go, "Do you need help?" he goes, in the most stereotype vampire voice, he says, "Good evening." We were like, what? Can this guy get any more vampire? Really? Are you going to smile at us next and show us your fangs? Or are you going to ask us, "Could you please enter our property?" All our vampire senses that we didn't realize we had were going off, and we're like, what? No, vampires aren't real. This guy's not a vampire. Really? And we're looking at our dogs, who are now licking his hand through the fence, going, well, the dogs trust him, but wait, if he's a vampire, would he be controlling the dogs? Don't know. Vampires aren't real, but right now I'm questioning my reality. It is midnight. It is a full moon. This guy is all in lacy black, and he is pale white, and he just spoke in a very vampire voice. What the F is going on? So he then goes on to say his car's broken down, and his girlfriend's in the car, and he just needs help. If we could help him. So Mum gathers herself together. She goes, okay, I'll just go grab my husband. She grabs Dad, and they wander off into the darkness with this guy, this vampire, and they go fix his car. My sister and I are just like, I hope he's not a vampire. Really? We're just bewildered at this moment, like, this is not normal for the middle of outback Australia, and every box of vampire is being ticked right now. And if we thought he couldn't get more vampire, oh, things were about to get more vampire. So he comes back down the road with our mum and dad. Everything's fine. The car's fixed. The girlfriend jumps out of the car. And she is gorgeous. She is stunning. She had silvery blonde, long, wavy, almost white hair, very blonde, pale skin, and the most beautiful, elegant, white lace, not from our period, dress. Another vampire box ticked here, guys! Why? And just to say, the car was a very shabby looking car, so that was not a vampire tick right there. Like, out of all the beautiful clothes you have, your car does not match that. But anyway, they turned out to be absolutely lovely people, thank goodness. But yes, just imagine the Jillaroos, who are fast asleep right now, who have not woken up to any of this, because mind you, our dogs are not barking because these people seemed trustworthy to our dogs. So we walk this lovely gentleman and lady in to offer them a coffee, because the sun is now rising. It's been a few hours. These poor Jillaroos wake up to this vampire-looking guy sipping his coffee and his vampire-looking girlfriend beside him, and he just goes, "Good morning." Their faces, I wish I could draw it for you. Their faces were just utter confusion as to where this guy came from and how he wasn't dying of heat stroke in those clothes. But anyway, to carry on, because we had a good conversation with these guys as to why they were out in the middle of nowhere in these clothes. And anyway, turns out of all the places they came from in the world, they actually came from Transylvania. They actually came from that place, and they had just moved to Australia and were exploring it. And someone had told them about this Cobb and Co trail, and they didn't tell them how long the road was to get there. So they had ended up not calculating the drive and running out of fuel in the middle of the dark. And thankfully our house lights were on, so they saw our house and came in for safety. So that explains a lot. They are now very close friends with our family. He's known as the local vampire, and he actually finds it hilarious because we've told him our perspective of the story, and he finds it absolute hilarious. And that's my vampire story. I love it. I hold it dear to my heart because it's just one of those crazy stories as to, like, why? I'm still questioning as to why he was in a trench coat in Australia, in the outback. It is very, very hot out here. Like, it's dry and hot. 30-degree temperatures. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but very, very hot. Even at night, it's still sweltering hot. But yes, that was the story about the night where I questioned whether vampires were real. And he's a lovely gentleman. His girlfriend's moved on, I think they broke up, but he's still around and he's still the local vampire. I have many stories from station life. It was a pretty crazy life, living out on a station. I can tell you about my ghost story that turned out to not be a ghost story. So, me and my sisters and a bunch of other girls were just trail riding our horses through the station, because there's plenty of beautiful areas you can just ride your horse for fun and take your picnic baskets out for a day and have some lunch out in the middle of nowhere and then ride back home. So that's what we were doing. We were just exploring. We were actually looking for another part of the Cobb & Co trail that day. That's where we were heading to have lunch. And we were heading up the mountain, which was actually at the edge of our station. And we didn't get to the Cobb & Co trail. We just got through this other fence. We'd shut the gate because for station rules, you leave the gates as you find them. If it's closed, you shut it. If it's open, you leave it open. Anyway, sorry, had to push that rule because a lot of people passing through stations don't follow those rules. So we'd just come through this gate, we'd shut the gate, and we'd just started up the mountain looking for this Cobb & Co trail. And we noticed this guy on a big black horse, all in black again. Why black? Why black? I don't know, but he wasn't in a trench coat, but he was all in black. And he had his face covered up, and he was just visible through the trees, watching us. And we're like, oh, that's shady. We're all teenage girls here. That is very shady. So we decided, let's just turn around and go home. We're not even going to say hello to this guy. He shouldn't be out here. And yes, we have mobile phones on us, but reception's really bad in the middle of nowhere, Australia. So, didn't think that went through. So we all start proceeding back down the hill, and we notice as we're walking back, he's following us. So, as teenage girls do, we panicked. We were just like, nope, we're not walking home. We're going to gallop home. So we're all freaking out. We're all in a full gallop, and then we slam on our skids on our horses just as we realize we shut the gate as we were supposed to do. The gate's shut, and we have this guy coming towards us, and we're freaking out. We were just screaming at each other, trying to convince one of us to get off the horse, to open the gate. Eventually, one of us did finally get off the horse and open the gate, and we all promised her we would not take off with her. If this guy really wanted to catch us, he would have been able to easily by this point, because we had been arguing at the gate for at least a minute. So she screams off her horse, opens the gate. We all try very hard not to leave her behind, but mind you, we're like egging our horses to keep trotting on. She gets on a horse, she leaves the gate open. Bad, but we're in a panic situation here, guys. And we just full sprint home. And the moment we get into a full sprint through this open gate, this guy full sprints after us as well. And we're just screaming and crying, and we're panicked. At the moment we broke through the trees, because it was like a good ride. I don't know how long we were full sprinting for, but it was a big ride to get there. But we broke through the trees back at our station home, and this guy wasn't behind us anymore. We don't know when he stopped following us because we were too freaked out. We get home, we're screaming and crying, we're telling Mum what's going on, and Dad goes out and shuts the gate and couldn't find anyone, couldn't see anyone. And this was just a story we told for years about the man on the black horse. He was a scary guy, and none of us girls ever rode out near the Cobb & Co trail again. We were too terrified. Years later, in my adult years, I find out one of my good friend's brothers worked on a station next door. And he was a young teenage boy. He saw us there, and he realized we were scared of him. So he decided to continue the scare by chasing us. So yeah, it turned out to not be a big scary guy. It turned out to be someone of our age who decided, since he was already scaring us, to continue scaring us. If we'd stopped to talk, we probably would have realized he wasn't that scary after all. Anyway, that's another story from the station life. I have one more. This one actually is quite scary. In our little station shed home that we had, tiny little shed, with our little fence perimeter around our house. It wasn't too much of a big perimeter, but it was tiny. we had our 3 guard dogs in our yard, and it was midnight again, of all times. Started going off their nutter, and we all walk outside, and we find our whole perimeter of our house yard surrounded by wild dogs. Not dingoes, wild dogs. They were so angry, and they wanted to kill our dogs. I don't know if they were wanting to kill us. Don't know, it was terrifying, though. Dad scared them off by making a lot of banging noises, and they all left. But that was a pretty scary time to see these dogs. But anyway, so that's the finished Snap Squad Chaos Effect Raptor. I really hope the Patreon winner likes it, and I hope you enjoyed my weird stories. Bye!